Today, we are exploring one of the most revolutionary composers of the 20th century, Arnold Schoenberg. His groundbreaking 12-tone technique broke away from the normal major and minor sounds that dominated music for centuries. Instead, his music became what we call atonality, because his music lacked a tonal center. Here's a quick overview of what a 12-tone series composition looks like. First, you start with a 12-tone series of notes that we call prime. Then you can write it in retrograde, invert it in retrograde. You can even transpose it, and then you can... Sound confusing? Well, it can be, but in this video, I'm going to break it down for you so that you not only understand how the 12-tone technique works, but you might even be able to compose a similar composition all on your own. So let's get started. Step 1. First, let's create a melody using 7 tones, and in this case, we will use white keys only. The notes you will be using to create your prime melody are A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It is also important to note that you can only use each note once in your first melody. Here's the example we'll be using today. This melody is called our prime melody and serves as the foundation of the composition we'll be making. In other words, it's our musical theme to be used in a variety of ways throughout our composition. Step 2. Now we need to create new melodies from our prime. There are many ways to do this. It is important that you write down your melodies so that you will remember them as you go. The variation we are going to do first is retrograde. The prime melody is written backwards. The next variation is a bit tricky, especially if you do not read music. It is called inversion or mirroring. Basically, what you do is you write your melody in the opposite interval direction as the prime. I think it works best if you can see it notated on a staff. Here's how it works. The top line is my prime melody, so I'm going to use the bass clef to create my inverted melody. Both melodies will start with C, but instead of going up 4 notes to F, my new note will be 4 notes down to G. Remember to count the lines and spaces, including the ones that the notes are on. And the last variation we are going to use is retrograde inversion. All you do is write the inversion backwards. That was the hardest part of the composition. I promise you the rest of it is much easier, but there are a few additional rules that you will need to follow, and here they are. Number 1, start your composition using your prime melody and make sure you add interesting rhythms. Number 2, you must always play all 7 notes of your melody before starting a new variation. Number 3, be creative and vary the meters and the rhythm so that your music does not sound structured. Number 4, create chords to vary the harmony and give your composition texture. Keep in mind that it should sound dissonant. Be sure to group your harmonies based on your primary melody. Now that you understand how to create a 7-tone composition, it's time to get those creative juices flowing and make your own masterpiece. In the next part of this video, I want to show you a composition that I created called Calming Storm. In this one, I created a different prime melody, and as you can see, there are sharps and flats. I find that if you add sharps and flats, it does make the composition sound more interesting. You will also notice in my composition is that I started with the prime melody and I repeated it a couple of times so that the listener is very familiar with it. I also added cluster chords, and these cluster chords are basically all of those 7 notes, but just piled on top of each other in different forms. Well, there you have it. Everything you learned in this video can be adapted to learning how to write the 12-tone composition technique. If you want to learn more, I've included some video links in the description box to help you. Thanks again for joining me on Music Lessons with Mrs. Morris. See you next time.